Those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside.
Welcome back. I'm Tyler, that's definitely not whiskey, and welcome to the 87th installment of Last Week Lolita News. At the top of the segment, Ruffle Report is dead. I'm suppressing the metaphorical urge to toss a possum into an establishment where possums are not supposed to be. And I've returned from the mental subliminal space I've been wandering in to tell you that no one in the Lolita community has attacked anyone unsolicited with an ice pick, so we're taking the opportunity to find our bloodshed elsewhere. Welcome to the pickup artist community on Twitter is convincing desperate men to commit interpersonal seppuku. We're going to focus on a Twitter account that we shall call Francis, who is a good representation of the questionable part of said community. And you're going to do us all the favor of not contacting them, even if you can guess who they are, because they just get off on the attention, and I prefer not to get any on my shoes. That said, some of you might have no idea what I'm going on about, so in service of a quick catch-up for the mercifully spared, the pickup artist community proclaims itself to be a space for men to teach other men how to pick up women. The pie chart of the pickup community, red pillars, hyperconservatives, incels, and the manosphere is a circle. And now that you have an idea of the type of environment these men's ideas are spawning from, it should not surprise you to learn that the first thing I saw on this account was a tweet that offered, quote,
"Women respond viscerally in their vagina to unpredictability, mixed signals, danger, and drama. Managing your relationship in such a way that she is left with a constant gnawing feeling of impending doom will do more for your cause than all the Valentine's Day cards in the world."
As the owner of said vagina, this explains why I always hear screaming from my crotch during horror movies. And all sarcasm aside, this tweet would turn out to be a quote from an even weirder blog that advocates what pickup artists call dread game, and normal people would call purposefully emotionally abusing your romantic partner in hopes that you can traumatize them into not fleeing like they're being chased by a swarm of bees. To get a better idea of just what dread game is, the blog advocates obtaining a healthy relationship by emotionally manipulating the intended partner through making a move on one of her friends, mentioning how skilled your ex was in the bedroom, flirting with other women in front of her, love bombing before withholding attention, gaslighting her when she becomes upset at your disappearance, looking annoyed if anyone says you're a cute couple, having a threesome while paying more attention to the other girl. And finally, if that isn't enough, you should then try the quote thermonuclear option, have an affair and make sure she finds out about it. Arrange the confrontation so that it does not happen at your place. When she confronts you, don't get defensive. Don't speak at all. Let her vent. Let her punch you in the chest and scream obscenities. When she takes a breather, tell her she's never looked more beautiful and you will never stop loving her. Then, without waiting for her response, calmly walk out the door and break off all contact for 2 weeks. When she comes back to you, and she will, you will have a love slave for life. This is the kind of alternative reality peddling we are dealing with. These people are living in some weird yandere self-insert, and while it should be noted that Francis does say dread game is hardcore and he doesn't recommend it, he immediately undercuts that with, quote, "A sprinkling of dread game can keep your girl's sexual and emotional focus on you and keep her from getting distracted by other Oscar Mayer Wieners." Meaning your potential girlfriend can have a little emotional abuse as a treat. It was interesting to see how small the gap was between Bad Women's Anatomy and Here's How You Get Your Very Own Love Slave. I am already tired. And while I can somewhat laugh at the near perfect men writing women moment in thinking that that particular organ operates like some kind of hindbrain, the swift slide into thoroughly planning the abuse of another person until you devastate their self-esteem enough to keep them like some kind of emotionally hobbled house pet is just a little concerning. It's also just plain bad advice. It's not going to work on anyone with brain power above that of your average pet rock. And even if it did, the sheer exhaustion of constantly planning this litany of bullshit to keep your romantic partner shackled to your side sounds like the kind of stress test that's going to lead to either your early hair loss or her developing a sudden interest in seeing how well you swim with a toaster oven. Do you want to see a full-grown adult licking your windows at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday because you go no contact on the wrong psycho for 2 weeks? And let me tell you, your results will fucking vary. Best case scenario, you create an emotional environment where someone you claim to like is constantly upset, and even if you're a complete sociopath, you can only listen to so much high-pitched keening before you backflip off a balcony. And the most probable scenario is that she leaves you for someone who hasn't dedicated an embarrassing amount of time formulating some weird Minotaur's labyrinth of mind games, which would be most people on the planet, so your competition is anyone else with a pulse. It's also a really bad way of gaining the companionship that a lot of these men that join pickup artist communities profess to want, which ties directly into another tweet from Francis where he says, quote,
"Beginners, when you approach a girl, don't try to be confident. The most important thing you want to be is indifferent. Your attitude? I don't care if I fail. I don't care if she ignores me or if I get her number. I'm just gonna talk to her because every girl is practice."
Again, no part of this sounds fun. Francis is encouraging turning what could be engaging interactions with other fully faceted human beings into a clinical exercise that you're not even supposed to care about. The confidence he's warning against is, ironically, the very thing that would actually work in your favor if it was rooted in an appropriate foundation of self-worth and emotional literacy. And even if you set that aside and claim that this kind of apathy is in service of practicing approaching women, exactly what is the point when Francis also says that, quote,
"You need to be mentally and emotionally ready to drop her at any moment. Love is war."
All that fuss and trouble to approach and gain the company of a person you do not care about, who you expect to abandon, who in your mind is some kind of enemy combatant who you must constantly subjugate for fear that they will emasculate you in some way by winning a game you don't even enjoy playing. I'd think most men would have more fun strapping their testicles to a car battery than go through half as much trouble, but we've yet to even reach the weirdest shit because it would appear that this strange cult has a very specific way they'd like their members to stand. According to Francis, if your girlfriend leans away from you in a photo, she is losing interest in you. Francis has provided us all with a not at all weird little diagram of this apparent phenomenon as an example, and Francis has obviously never held a child in his life because the person in question is obviously leaning to provide the child with a hip to rest on, the kid is leaning because those little bastards are top heavy as hell, and no one in the photo was informed of Francis's standards beforehand because they presumably live normal lives, and suggesting spine placement based on genitalia is generally frowned upon unless the speaker is looking to get forcibly hauled into an institution. Ironically enough, your loved one's leaning a certain way in photos does not mean they're distancing themselves from you, but policing their posture right before the picture's taken is going to make them reconsider whether they want to be seen anywhere in your vicinity. The rest of Francis's account is littered with equally unhelpful, obsessive, or outright sabotaging advice for lonely men who may be fooled into listening. And while there were many more colorful tweets we could have gone through here today, I'd like to get back to doing near anything else with my time, and rather than play whack-a-mole with what I presume is Francis's LARPing outlet, we're going to instead actually provide the lonely souls that stumble into this video with actionable methods for obtaining companionship in this lifetime without risking incarceration. Usually I wouldn't bother, but given that 77,000 people have been suckered into following this man, apparently something needs to be said, so please jettison whatever Francis has told you into the nearest ocean and listen up. The first thing you'll want to do to attract people into your life is to understand that said people have innate value. This means you have innate value too, and that worth cannot be taken from you no matter what you do, not even if you use powdered creamer in your coffee. It puts you on thin fucking ice, but I'll tolerate it for now. The second thing you must do is develop your interests. So find something that you actually enjoy in life and have fun with that. Follow the dopamine. If that happens to mean dressing like some kind of possessed cupcake, all the better. Joining an online community related to your hobby will get you even more bang for your buck while expanding your social circle. While we're on that topic, learning social skills is an imperative part of step 2. But rather than the apathetic type of practice that Francis suggested, approach the people you want to talk to with an actual curious mind, and treat each experience like a little glimpse into someone else's life that you can learn from. Coming to understand group dynamics and how best to interact with others can only be learned through experience, but it gets infinitely easier with time. Being open with your interests will draw like-minded people into your life, and practicing talking to many different types of people will keep you from foaming at the mouth when they happen to wander in. I swear to fuck, some of you are like goddamn barn cats, so I'm serious when I tell you that you need to get out there and talk to some people if you'd like to keep from being rounded up and spayed in an act of population control. That accomplished, the third and final thing is going to sound counterproductive, but once you've taken a bit to develop the first two steps and have social prowess above that of a wildebeest, the last and best advice is to stop obsessing over how you can get people to date you and start taking an active interest in the things in life you already have that make you happy. Does that sound way easier than it is? Yes. Do people who've been single for 6+ years currently feel like hitting me with something blunt and flammable? Yes, but if you'll hear me out, I promise I'll explain. The truth of the matter is that desperation is not sexy. It's like the Axe body spray of emotions, and only amateurs let it overpower their interactions with other people. Concisely put, starving men have no standards, and everyone else can't stand them. You combat this by filling yourself up on the things you love in life, the fact that you matter as a person, and while you're at it, developing an actual interest in other people beyond just what they can offer you romantically. Get to know the world around you. Don't be shy about the things you love about it. Pay attention, and you will be rewarded with the presence of like-minded people who will like you for just the way you are. Not some contrived, fussy, overly complicated construction that takes constant maintenance, but who you actually are and for what you actually enjoy. This also means that you're less likely to latch onto the first breathing biped that stumbles in your direction and appears unlikely to call the cops if you touch them. And while I'm not advocating that you have to work through every fracking bit of trauma or hang-ups you possess, engaging with the world in a sincere manner will at least mean that the people who do come into your life will stand a better chance of improving it with their presence. Hopefully just as much as you will improve theirs with your own, because that is, after all, the point of companionship in the first place. You know, actually enjoying the presence of equally flawed, equally fascinating human beings. Or you could keep listening to a guy that is making little charts on people's spine placement. I'm sure he's very popular in person and not at all the type of creature that everyone avoids because he gives off the vibes of a future serial killer. Meanwhile, that is all the time we have for tonight. This has been Tyler. I'd like to thank my patrons for not reporting my obituary prematurely. And should you like to join their number, you can head over to patreon.com/lastweeklolitanews for further nonsense that I don't recommend for the unsedated. Should you have a suggestion for the next special segment, leave those on the Patreon or in the comments below. I'm going to empty this bottle of its contents because I'm not driving. Thanks again, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Syncing the audio, take 2. Ow, son of a hooker.